All right, and we are live. Don Yaeger, what an honor and a pleasure. I have been so looking forward to this conversation. How are you?
I am extraordinary, Sabrina. How are you?
I am uh, just about as lucky as I should be. I'll say that.
There, there you go.
It's been an incredible, incredible last couple of weeks, and including for you. Speaking of an incredible last 2 weeks, you just released your latest book, which I'm
Yeah.
very excited to get into because it touches on excellence in leadership as well as the neuroscience and a
Of,
lot of the
of
components behind
momentum.
that.
How do we build momentum? Exactly.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly. Which is what everybody on this audience wants to know about. And if you don't know Don Yaeger, first of all, I'm going to drop links below. You're going to want to look at them. You have worked with the likes of Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, Walter Payton. I mean, just about everyone. You have 12, soon to be 13 books that are New York Times bestsellers. Your history is just incredible. Some of the things that you've done.
Now you're making me feel old, but thank you. Yeah.
Or maybe you just work fast,
That's
maybe
it.
you just work fast. Yeah, it's pretty spectacular what you've been noted on and what you've led. So I'm very excited to dive in today a little bit more about that. But before we do, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit more about yourself. What do we need to know?
Just a longtime journalist. I was a writer at Sports Illustrated for a long time. Retired from there a number of years ago. Took an early retirement package. Continue to write books. The New Science of Momentum is my 42nd book, which is crazy. And then I do a lot of corporate speaking. I do about 65 speaking events a year for companies all around the world, which is it's fun. I get to talk about high performance. What do we learn? Now I'm going to be out talking about how do we build momentum? How do organizations build or reverse momentum, depending on where you are on the spectrum?
And part of that is, I'm guessing, a big sort of lessons learned over the years. One of the incredible speeches that you do across the board is what makes the greats great.
Yeah.
And so was that part of the inspiration behind the book? Tell us a little bit about it.
So the inspiration for this book actually began 8 years ago. It was when the Super Bowl was being played and the Atlanta Falcons were ahead of the New England Patriots 28-3 in the third quarter. And most everybody else turns the TV off because the game is over. ESPN says there's a 99% chance Atlanta's going to win. But I stayed watching, and over the course of the next quarter and a half, little by little, the Patriots start chipping back. And pretty soon you could feel that momentum had shifted sidelines.
Yeah.
And so I came in the next morning to my office, opened up the whiteboard, brought in creative team that I have around me, and wrote, how do we turn a moment into momentum?
Mm.
And that became the journey. I wanted to understand, how do the best take advantage of moments? How do they take a spark and turn it into a full-blown fire? And over the course of 8 years, hundreds of interviews, thousands of research research questionnaires offered to many great leaders, and built a book that actually includes a model for how leaders can do exactly that, how they can build momentum within their teams or their organizations. We studied sports, business, politics, and the military. In those four worlds, how do you create momentum, and how do you take advantage of an opportunity that's presented to you?
Wow.
Yeah.
So without giving too many spoilers, I mean, I'm a research buff. My background is in behavior profiling and analysis. I love everything around kind of the neuroscience behind why people do what they do, what makes the great so great, and how do you share that? How do you accelerate that across more teams and broader organizations? And I'm just so fascinated by you taking a scientific approach to this. Of course, given your extensive journalistic background, that was in there as well. We didn't even touch on all the things you've done with like National Geographics. There's just not enough time, Don. But, I'm curious to know, because obviously you can't consolidate the whole book into a snippet or a soundbite, but certainly you've like you said, you've had countless interviews. You've talked to literally the best in the world across all those different verticals or industries. If there's something that makes maybe those who achieve such extreme success, we get that there's sort of something maybe innate in them, but how do you, momentum is really about,
it's about a group of people. It's momentum for us.
Yeah.
So we looked at it. First off, there's this concept of flow. We've probably all heard about, right? I'm in flow. I'm like I am so energized by what I'm doing. I look up and the clock is advanced 5 hours and I didn't even know, like it felt like 15 minutes. That's flow, right? But that's a very individual emotional state that you can, it's almost trance-like, that you can get in when you're in flow professionally, right? We've all been there. But momentum is when a group of people are in flow together, right? It's when a team, I know you speak a lot to technology companies. It's when a sales organization is locked in and is moving in lockstep together. That's momentum, right? That's where we're achieving victories, and the victories are stacking, and big things are coming our way. And so what we learned in this study of some of the best in the world, right, who lead teams on a journey to do something big, is that there is a process to it. Like sometimes we think it's very randomly happenstance, right? It's just, oh, good things happen. Now, the best teams, the best organizations prepare for those opportunities so that when the opportunity arises, they can say, we're ready for this, right? It's not going to come and go, which sometimes a great moment might happen to you or to your team. And you look up and you're thinking, how cool is that? And by the time you're done saying it, it's gone.
Right.
The great teams are ready for those moments so that it allows them to capture momentum. Actually, then they because they do the right things, they can extend its lifespan. There is a lifespan for any kind of, we all understand momentum, right? There's a lifespan to it. You can extend it if you do the right things. And if you're on the wrong side of it, there are ways you can reverse it. And so that's what this book really digs into, is how do we look at momentum as a competitive advantage?
Right.
And if we're looking at it that way, how do we make sure that we're, what's the model? And so we created one. We created a model that lays out in very specific form how the best teams do this. And it's created specifically so that it can be replicated by a reader or a team that might be looking at this together. How could they use the model to make themselves better?
Yeah. And that's fascinating. I can't wait to dig into it. So help me understand how much of it is the leadership, leading and having a certain mindset or having a certain skill set or a combination of that and following your model, for instance. How much of it is the team themselves? I'm trying to understand how much of it is the collective group and how much of it is the individual.
So it does begin. In fact, if I could show you the model, I could send it to you. You could put it in your show notes if you want. But if you look at the model, it begins with leadership. It does. But now leadership doesn't mean positional leadership, right? Sometimes the leadership that helps you manage through a situation are your teammates, but one of them steps into a role. So one of them becomes a leader. And so leadership is not a positional thing in the way we evaluate it in this way. But a good leader obviously establishes a great culture, and a culture is really important to be able to maximize an opportunity, a spark. You have to have great culture. Then you have to recruit the right people. You have to recruit people who are willing to cheer for each other. Nothing would be worse than if, Sabrina, you and I are on a team and you get the last shot or you sell the biggest widget, whatever it is. And in the background, I'm sitting there going, damn, I should have been the one that sold that widget, right? I hate Sabrina for doing that, man. Or am I the guy who walks over and is like, truly, boom, good job, Sabrina. Give me a high five. I want to make sure I celebrate you. That's a matter of recruiting. Are you recruiting people who can celebrate others, who are high performers, want to be the best, but also want to recognize, I do a lot of work over the years. I've done a lot of work with the Navy SEALs and Navy SEAL groups. And one thing they'll tell you is A players want to play with A players, right? B players want to play with C players. A players want to be in the presence of other superstars. But then they got to be able to celebrate the other superstars. That's an important piece. And then the third piece in the prep of momentum is truly preparation. Like how do you think about, well, we're down right now. We're in the the last 2 weeks of the sales quarter, and we really need a lot. We got to make up a lot.
Right.
How do we prepare for something good to happen? And you want to be able to be ready to amplify it. You want to be ready to celebrate it, to talk about it in a way that allows people to believe that when it happens, it's because you were ready for it, right? You prepared for it. There's nothing better in an organization than for people to look and say, yeah, of course we were able to do great things there. We were ready, right? We were built for this.
Yeah.
And but being built for this is not happenstance; it's intentional. So
that makes so much sense.
I've rambled a lot. Sorry about that.
No, this is so
I get
good.
fired up on this topic. So
well, and that's why I'm like, you did the science behind it. You did the research. Not to mention, I won't say how many decades, but a lot of interviews and a lot of conversations and a lot of dear friendships at some extremely senior levels. So you've seen this for a minute or two, even in your own conversations and relationships. That's why I'm so fascinated. You are a foremost expert on this. And when you go into organizations and not just teach them and help build these sort of systems or, a process or a framework around it, the other part is, okay, we didn't get the right team. We've got a couple bad apples in there. Can you shift momentum with those bad apples, or do you have to get rid of them first? What comes first?
You can work with bad apples, but it's important to know who they are. It's important to be able to kind of to marginalize them in moments, because like one of the stories we tell is this great basketball story from a while back where Scottie Pippen was Michael Jordan had retired for a little brief window. Scottie Pippen was the star of the Chicago Bulls. And they're in a playoff series. The team needs one basket. There's only a few seconds left. Timeout's called, and Phil Jackson, the coach, designs a play for someone other than Scottie Pippen, right? And Pippen refuses to get off the bench to go into the game. He says, "You know what? If you're not calling the play for me, and I'm the best player, then I don't even want to be on the court," which ruined his reputation within his own team and his players. And even within the league, there were a lot of people who struggled to ever think the same of Scottie Pippen, because he was more concerned with, I need to take the shot than we need to win the game, right? That became more important to, and so they won. They went on to win, when Michael Jordan came back with Scottie Pippen on the team. So that didn't ruin their opportunity for success. But Scottie Pippen was never quite seen the same by any of his teammates, because they understood how he was wired. So you don't have to get rid of them, but you have to figure out how to move beyond some of their actions and activities.
Yeah, because I could see that being a factor in business.
Right.
I could
like
see
you got to
why.
go get rid of somebody. Yeah, and the answer is no. But you have to know who they are. And you have to know how to deal with that.
Got it. Is that in your framework too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Good. So, all right. Like I said, I will have the link below. Make sure you check it out. So my next question is a topic I am currently obsessed with, and it ties in perfectly with momentum, because a lot of times, not always, but you've talked about a few examples already. The catalyst to momentum, or the driver behind needing momentum, is a scary moment, is a fear, is a scary moment, to put it simply. We might lose the game. We might lose the deal. We might lose whatever it might be. Or, I'm going to embarrass myself. This is scary. This is bad. Any kind of negativity or fear, really. So is there anything in your research behind how these successful teams that are able to reach this heightened level of sustained momentum, a way that they approach, look at, or even prepare for fear?
That's such a great question. It's funny. I know the importance of fear in your discussion points, right? I mean, it's who you are. It's what you teach. But what I will tell you is I think where fear plays its role is often in the question about, can we reverse momentum, right? Because momentum at its core is a state of mind, right? It is a belief system that I am convinced we're ready for this moment, like we're good. But what if I'm not convinced that we're ready for the moment? What if fear is really more important than confidence?
Right.
What if fear has a greater role than confidence? So one of the things that really stands out is that the great leaders in trying to reverse momentum, they understand that fear is real, that fear of, like, because teams that are on the wrong side of momentum, if you're in business, and you're consistently, your quarter after quarter, your numbers are not where they're supposed to be, your really good players are going to start looking for other jobs because they feel momentum working against them. So one of the things you have to do to eliminate that fear is you have to look for small victories and amplify them. You have to start if your fear is stand-up comedy, gosh, who do we know who would do that? And they would and they're going to go throw themselves up on a stage and do that. Hey, sometimes you need to just embrace the few laughs that you got, right? And as you walk off, say, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, right? As opposed to when you walk off, your communication skill to yourself, or your communication to yourself is, that was the worst thing I've ever done. And so it's how do you frame? It really is about framing. And in a lot of ways, it's about finding the small wins and then stacking them. Hey, there were 3 jokes in a row that really killed it. Now the rest of them sucked, but what can I do to do more jokes like those 3, right? As opposed to walking off deflated. You're looking and saying, here are my victories.
Right. Great example for somebody who owned a comedy club. Another little fun fact about Mr. Yaeger. Yeah, there you go. It's interesting. That's a great example is, failing on stage, doing, bombing at a set or something like that. In my experience with Fear Forward, the win is just that you did the fear. The outcome is literally irrelevant. And that's what I've told myself is I just do scary things. The outcome doesn't matter. Because then you get to stack up those wins. And to your point, all of a sudden, anything else is an additional win. If you got one laugh, that's a win because the win was just getting on stage.
Right. And again, what happens as you begin to do that is you begin to say, by the way, that wasn't, I didn't die. Right. You know what? I mean, like I didn't lose a limb. I didn't, so I could do this again. Right. I could do something else again. And it's that belief that you've been there that allows you to take the step into your fear, right? It helps that, and maybe they're different fears, but the ability to actually lean into previous successes makes a big difference.
Yeah, I could see why. Yeah. So one last question, because it's never enough time, and this is just, I'm looking at the time going, how did it go so fast? But so, a large part is the tech world, but also manufacturing. I mean, we talked about a bunch of, different verticals and industries that you analyzed and studied and interviewed. Sometimes you're not ready. I mean, how do you find the balance between we're lying to ourselves or we're gearing up for what's in store because we're champions in the long run. So how do you balance that out? Like the product's not ready, but it's launching on Tuesday, or the team's not ready, but customers are demanding progress. How do you balance that?
Well, I do think, I will tell you, I don't think lying, all those folks who talk about fake it till you make it, I'm not a big fan of that, because I do think that one of the things that happens rather than fake it till you make it, like really not, as opposed to trying to project to other people that you have a skill set you don't really have. Because one of the things that happens, our world is based on, so much of our world is based on credibility anymore, right? And if someone finds out you've intentionally, deceived others, like, and sometimes faking it can be deceiving of others, right? You're deceiving others. Then I think you've got to be careful there, because I think it can cost you the most important thing you have, which is your reputation. Now, do I think you should tell yourself things that might be a little, that's one thing, but it's what do you project to other people? What are you telling other people? And sometimes when I hear that phrase, fake it till you make it, I hear people describe it as almost a model for success. And I struggle with that, because I think that the most important, like what you might tell yourself might be a little bit inflated, but if you spend too much time inflating your competence to people who will soon discover that was not quite, that you were inflating it, it actually can hurt you, right? And can hurt you in ways that are really difficult. So I do think it's important to be rooted in your in a history that's largely based on truth.
That you're 100% right. We're all the hero to our own story. That's just how our human brain works, and that's a whole other story. But I think you're right. I think how we show up in public is truly a reflection of who we are in private,
Right.
And so if you're lying to yourself and others in private, that shows up.
Yep.
Not only does it ruin your credibility, it almost annihilates your authenticity. All of a sudden, and then it's even harder to find who you really are.
And that word authenticity is so important in today's environment, right? People are drawn to it. People want to be part of it. So being authentic into the world of other people is cannot be overstated.
I would argue that is probably one of the top 3 factors to my success. Any of it and all of it. Whether it's speaking or social and influencing and brands and, selling my companies, you name it. It is.
Your authenticity also plays out in vulnerability, which I think is really kind of interesting,
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to deal with. There are a lot of people that cannot open themselves up in a way that will allow other people to really examine who they are.
Right. Well, it's one of the top fears, right? Is looking silly or foolish in public. And this is why your research, your book is so important. And I would recommend folks, definitely pick up the book, but check out Don's podcast too. Because there's a lot of this embedded in there, but you're also talking to a lot of these leaders. So you can hear it, learn from their lessons, not your own kind of thing, so that you can.
Oh my gosh. Anything you can do to shorten your pain cycle by listening to other people's failures is a good thing, right? Learn, as you said, learn from others.
Yeah, exactly. So I know we're already over. I have one last question, because it's every person in the audience is thinking it right now. I'm positive of it. If not, prove me wrong in the comments, you guys. But Don, you have the best voice, obviously. I hope you know that. Do you read any of your audiobooks, or do you do any of your own audiobooks for your 42 books?
I did it once, and I'll never do it again. It's the single worst thing you could ever do. Have you done it? Did you do it for your book?
I will tell you, I did not do it for my book. I've got another one coming out in the summer. I don't know if I'm going to do it. Yeah.
It's,
right.
The book, the audio book that I read was on the book I did on greatness, and it had it's a 9-hour audiobook, right? It took me
Okay.
21 hours to read it, because every time you're making a mistake or every time you stumble, or it's like, go back to the top of that page and start again. No, let's start on the sentence right. Nope, it'd be easier to edit if we start at the top of the page. And by the time you get done with it, I was so exhausted. I couldn't even. I was like, I don't want to read this Yaeger guy ever again. Like that guy
You've
wore me
never
out.
hated, yeah, you've never hated your own book more, right? You're like, what did
Never.
I do? I should have finished
Exactly.
it.
Who would want to read this crap? Anyway, but I did it once, and that was it.
Okay. All right. So pay extra attention to that book, and then the rest, still check out the book, but it won't be to hear your voice. We'll have to go to your podcast. How about that?
There we go. Sabrina,
All
thank
right.
you so much.
You're just wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing, for the human that you are. We need more of it. So thank you, Don. This is a pleasure.
Ma'am. I appreciate you.
See you soon. Bye.